Most of us think we're neutral until something hits a nerve. And then when that happens, there's a tone or a look or a disagreement or something that lands the wrong way. And suddenly we're not neutral anymore. We're triggered. Being neutral, though, isn't about not caring. It's not about being aloof or emotionally separated, but it's really about staying steady, staying anchored when something matters to us that comes up. Nina, what are your thoughts about being neutral? What does that actually mean to you?
Ooh. Well, I'm so thrilled that we have chosen this topic. You actually just answered my first five questions to you. I would say initially the word neutral.
Mhm.
I'm just going to be honest, expose. I just think like, how is it even possible? And it sounds a little boring. And I just got a little too much spice for that. But I enjoy authentic expression. And so at first glance, I'm not a big fan of neutrality. It does seem passive.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt like there's a misunderstanding around what it means to be neutral?
Yeah. And in fact, I think people have misunderstood me when I am being neutral. I'll give you an example. When my kids were growing up, I had four kids, four children under 10 years old, and we brought in a couple of kids, a couple of summers from Belarus to get away from the Chernobyl poisoning. So I had six kids in the house. And at one point, a little boy from Belarus was playing with my son. They were the same age, they were 8, playing out in the backyard in the big field. Tanner was on the bike and Slava pulled the bike as a joke, and Tanner went flying and broke his arm. And they came running and screaming into the house where there were four little girls. And I had a thought in that very moment. I thought, oh my gosh, they're going to kill me. There's so much drama and so many things always going on. I have a choice right now. I literally was thinking this. It's weird. I remember it. I thought, I can either react or I can just manage this situation. And I took that on as part of, I guess, my persona. That point forward, I'm like, nope, I cannot get upset every time something happens or I will die young. And so I know that's dramatic, but that's kind of what I took on. And so when that happened, I was like, okay, Madeline, Annalise, get the baby, put her shoes on, pack the diaper bag. Slava, go open up the minivan, make a place for Tanner, grab a blanket. Tanner, you just sit here until we all get out the door. I was super calm about it. And I really did take that on as part of the way I determined that I was going to handle life. But I will tell you that for my kids, the feedback I got from them as they grew up was, geez, mom, like, do you even care? So the neutrality became a problem for my children who felt like I wasn't emotional enough. So I can see how somebody being neutral feels like distance, caring, unplugged, not in touch with reality. Definitely think that it can land that way. And I've gotten that feedback my whole life now. Well, since that point in time, like, gosh, you're not very emotional. You should be super emotional. And I'm like, yeah, yes. Awesome. So there can be a downside to how others experience neutrality. I mean, you might be really solid inside of yourself, and it's not that I don't care. It's not that I'm not listening, but I'm trying to manage myself so that I don't give up my sanity or my peace, or I don't fully play my card. Like somebody's having a freak out, and I'm standing there listening and acknowledging it, and I'm not yet ready to share my position. I mean, there are lots of reasons why I find it really helpful to stay neutral.
Mhm.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Such a great example. And for those who are joining the conversation or listening in, it calls that question. Was there ever a point in your life where you chose neutrality? And it seems like you just have such great awareness. You had a defining moment.
Did.
That was a defining moment. And in that moment, what I wrote down is you ask yourself, do I react or do I manage this?
Mhm.
And it's like, okay, you found a superpower to navigate conflict rather than making the conflict bigger.
Yeah.
And so, and at the same time, awareness you have is it could come off that I'm not caring, I'm distant. So it's
Yeah.
really interesting how that plays out. But in terms of navigating the conflicts and the trials and tribulations of life,
Yeah.
so for people listening in, I just want to throw that out. Like, invite yourself to find one of those moments where you did choose neutrality to handle something that may have been life threatening, where we needed your best self and your whole self to arrive present. So when you were telling that story, Robin, I immediately went to one of those 911 calls. And looking back at it, I went, how was I so calm?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like it's almost like if there's something observing you, like you're not in the movie, you're aware, like you're observing yourself in this movie and how it can play out.
Mhm.
And it's like, well, I really care about this going well. And so it's more important for me to show up in a way that's helpful and supportive
Mhm.
than
Well, I think the question is, I don't think that being neutral is the answer all the time, right? When something really dramatic or sad or difficult happens, even just giving you an example of my kids getting stung by a bee. One of my kids got stung by a bee. Now, if I had just been like, that's okay, right? Like, you'll be fine. That feels really dismissive of a person's literal pain. And I feel like there has to be enough awareness of when it's appropriate and what it's for. So in that case, for me to just say to my son when he's 2 getting stung by a bee, you'll be fine. It wasn't that. It was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if he's allergic because he hasn't stung before. And my mom was allergic and he's screaming in pain. And I need to fully engage and attend to him. That is not a time for me to be neutral. I need to be in action and present and taking care of things. Same thing, Nina, if you have a big fight with your spouse or your partner or whatever, I like to stay calm. I would rather stay calm than anything. But if I am so calm and so reserved that what he is thinking is she doesn't care, but refusing to escalate, I'm not going to escalate. Like I've said to people, try me. You want to fight? Just see what it's going to take because it's probably going to take a lot because I'm just not willing to listen without collapsing, like becoming really little. And that's not neutrality either. It's not about just shrinking down and taking it. It's not that, but it's also separating the position somebody's taking from who I know them to be. Hear it, respond to it, be present for it, whatever it is. It's just being calm. Being neutral is being calm.
well, just so happy to unpack it a little bit. It's our loved ones, significant others. What comes to mind is if neutrality is available first, I'm going to be curious. I'm going to ask questions before I arrive at a conclusion.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't jump to a conclusion or I wouldn't rush to defending myself. If I'm coming from a neutral place, it's almost like you're not feeding the fire. You're showing up in a way where you're not making how you show up create a problem that's on top of the problem.
Yeah.
It's almost like I'm not going to add anything, but I'm not taking something away. Like I don't have to be unpresent. I can still be fully engaged. So curiosity and patience are sort of involved in being neutral, but it seems like neutrality has a little bit of space. Like there's patience in there.
Oh, I agree, Nina. And one of the things we teach in people skills is to slow things down. So
Yeah.
that's so important. And I think that's what neutrality can give you. I have to watch myself though. I'm just thinking about neutrality because I had an incident this weekend where I was not feeling very neutral at all. And I know this might sound weird, but I don't want to weaponize the neutrality either. Like being too calm, being too silent, it also feels a little bit manipulative, right? But
Yeah.
neutrality is trying to stay even, slowing it down, giving everybody time to process. Okay, so maybe what's the opposite of neutrality? right? The opposite is immediately having a reaction, immediately forming an opinion, immediately blowing it up, or immediately walking away. And so if we are reacting, it's impossible to stay neutral because you're reacting. And I was thinking about that political disagreement, leadership tension, a family conflict, marital tension. These things all cause tension, and those things are very hard. If somebody surprised you with an accusation, it's hard to be neutral. And so to get there, you have to pause. You have to count to five and go, what just happened? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the tendency is somebody says something to you and you're so surprised that you go into a reaction. So maybe neutrality is pausing for those 5 seconds to go, what? What? Right? And then that's actually curiosity. That's not a decision. It's more like, wait, maybe I didn't hear that right. Did I understand you? Did you actually say this? Clarification, just getting clarification of what's actually happened and then pausing for a minute. Maybe you're angry, but can you just take a second?
Mm-hmm.
That could be neutral. What do you think?
I I actually just got a flashback of I had a very smart, amazing roommate, and that was her advice to me was I was in a situation that was a little bit scary, and her response was just stay neutral. She
Mm.
actually said that full circle. This was maybe 15 years ago.
Yeah,
And I was like, what does that mean?
yeah,
And it was so cool because yeah, I neutral was I'm not going to shrink, but I'm not going to get really big. I'm just going to be in this space. Do you ever watch birds when they hover in the air?
yeah,
And they're surveying the land. They're
yeah,
checking out what's going to happen before they make their next move. They're not just taking shots in the dark in any direction. And so I don't really know what the truth is, at least in this moment. Okay. I know what I'm feeling. I can sense what's going on in my body, but I don't know that that's actually what's happening out there.
right,
And so there's sort of like this humility of before I react or judgment, I'm judging a situation really fast and I'm going, oh, she's one of those kind of people. I was like, whoa, where did that come from? Like, and then all of a sudden, all other possibility is no longer available
right,
and or solutions aren't available. Oh, he's doing that again. He's being a blah, blah, blah.
yeah,
It's like,
right,
well, if I'm neutral, it seems like when neutral, there's just so many more solutions.
yeah,
If we're in this reaction and judgment mode. And so I feel like neutrality is actually um, it's an empowering place to be when it's practiced in moments when you would least expect to show up that way.
yeah. Well, and I think you have to train for it too, right? Practice this stuff all the time. I'm sure all of us actually get to practice it all the time because there are opportunities for conflict and conversations go south. I mean, especially with people that you love. I can say something and you hear it this way, and it happens with my husband and I. I say it, he heard it like this. That's not my intent at all. But because he heard it that way, now we have an opportunity to disagree or get upset with each other. And so I was thinking about it. When you lose neutrality, you tend to personalize disagreement. He always, she always. You assume the intention was bad, right?
Yeah.
You rush to defend yourself. You
Mm-hmm.
shut down to protect yourself. You control the narrative. Well, that's not what I said, right? That's exactly what you said. Well, that's not what I meant, right? And so there's nothing neutral in that. It's very defensive. Being neutral isn't being quiet. It's not being avoidant. It's not indifference. It's just emotional steadiness. That's what the goal is.
Mm-hmm.
So,
If I'm clear, like with who I am, what I want, there isn't a need to use emotion or emotional pressure or guilt. It's very seductive. It's how the world works. We knew this when we were little kids. You scream and cry and You want the lollipop or the toy at the store. And so we're always going to have a little kid or a big kid within us.
Yeah.
And when we have those moments of enlightenment or evolution, it's like the truth can stand for itself. I don't have to use emotional pressure. Like, I don't have to escalate a situation with emotion and anger or drama. You can just ask for what you want. This is a new inspiration for me, by the way, Robin. I'm so excited to unpack.
It's an interesting topic, right? And what you're talking about is all manipulation. We learn to do it when we're very little. And that's kind of how the world works. We manipulate. I've done a ton of personal development, read a gazillion books, but that's how the world works. We're always thinking about ourselves. What can I get? How do I protect myself? Whatever it is. And so we've honed this stuff over years. If you blow up, if you walk on eggshells, if whatever your communication default is under pressure, you learned that and it helped you as you were growing up, right? It helped you survive the world. But we're grown-ups now, and the things that helped us when we were little don't necessarily contribute to peace and ability to hang in there when it's tough. And I promise you, I've had some stuff go on in recent days where I'm like, oh my gosh, am I really dealing with this? And remaining neutral and looking at repair. But if I've blown it up so bad, that's all that's left are pieces of shrapnel all over the walls. It's going to be really hard to repair it, right? So I am committed to not blowing things up. And so for me, what I found to not blow things up is to find a way in the moment to not say those nasty things that I so badly want to say, not to wound the other person to the point that it's going to be a big repair job, and that I've not disengaged so much that I can't find my way back in, right? So trying to stay in a place where I don't damage the other person, I don't damage myself, I have an easier recovery with that other person. I think that's where neutrality helps me, because after you have a big blow up with somebody, repair mode is super important. I also want to give our listeners a little bit of like, how do you actually stay neutral? And I don't know about you, but the first thing is just to notice the surge. What got me activated? What happened? Was I offended, hurt, angry, surprised? And immediately ask myself, what? It's the easiest way to frame it. What are you telling yourself about this situation? There's a lot packed into that. And it could be this person always does this to me, or I deserve this, or this is how I always get treated, or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. There's no judgment. I'm not asking you to judge it. When I did some personal development 20 years ago, one of the things that was super helpful was the idea of already always listening. When I'm in a relationship with somebody, I'm sure you feel the same way, Nina. They occur to you a certain way and they have predictable behavior. If they're always negative, you're going to pick up negative because that's the context in which you see them. You frame them that way. Like, this person's always so negative. Have I come to expect this? Am I looking for this? Right? The voice in my head that goes, of course she said that. Right? Like, hang on. That's not helpful right now. What am I telling myself about what's happening right now? Did that person actually say it that way? Is that what they meant? So slowing it down and then asking, I think I heard you say this. Is that what you said? Looking for a little clarity can be really helpful at that point. Yeah.
What you're pointing to is with like an actual cognitive bias, seeing the thing that we already believe ourselves to see person. And so like, and it becomes a fulfilling prophecy. What frame do we have on that other person? And if we didn't have that frame, okay, it's like, oh, look how helpful they've been. Look at all their sweet gestures. I didn't even know. I can name 20 now that I changed my lens to what have you done for me lately? Wow, you've actually done a lot. I just wasn't focused there. In relationships where if you have the person who never says I love you, but all of their behaviors and actions, they show love, they demonstrate love. And that was my family, where my dad said, in our country, our family, we don't say I love you. We're family. We love each other. And then the opposite way of looking at it is, how do I know you love me? You didn't say it. You don't say it. So,
So that's so interesting that you say that, because I'm thinking about one of my kids who was talking about the person she's in a relationship with, and how he doesn't articulate things all the time, but he's a guy who's all about acts of service. He's constantly doing things for her that are lovely and wonderful. But I've had to point out to her, just because you don't hear the words, just because you don't hear the words, look at the actions. They speak louder than words, even if you're a words person. And I know that she is. In finishing this little part here, so we've talked about noticing the feelings, noticing the surge of emotion or surprise or anger or offense or whatever it is, slowing down and saying, hang on, what am I telling myself is happening right now? Separating the person from the issue. Like, is this actually personal to me? Is this not personal to me? And asking for clarity. Help me understand. Here's what I'm hearing you say. Here's what I'm seeing. Let's slow this down. Wait, hold on. Can you say that again in a different way? I'll ask people that, which frustrates people because they're like, I'm mad at you. I don't want to say it in a different way. But asking anyway, because it slows the other person down too. If they have to actually pause and go, yeah, what I mean is, which is really clarifying. And it's again, slowing the roll so that you have a chance to get steady and get curious and process what is happening before you do or say anything that could end up being escalation or retreat, right? We don't want to retreat. We don't want to collapse. We don't want to escalate. We want to be present for what's happening. So that to me is the beauty of being neutral. If I am neutral, I can hear. But if I'm not neutral, I can't even be curious, right? I'm just losing it over here.
mhm. I wanted to add too, it's just my favorite metaphor. I got it from Dr. Pat Allen. It's eating your popcorn. And so if someone's having a reaction, we all know how it turns out when we are in reaction to their reaction. It leads us to very wonderful places. And if we don't want to go there, or we have that moment of sanity, it's it's like, okay, I'm observing, you were speaking really fast, or it seemed like you were holding your breath. You're stressed out right now. And the person can go, oh, yeah, I was holding my breath. I was on the spot, or I was trying to say the right thing, or I felt like I was in trouble. And by being able to watch that person's movie
Mm.
just and eat your popcorn, and like, oh, this is very interesting how they're showing up. And this is what I'm seeing, without getting involved in it and getting in the weeds of it. It's really nice to be around people who can stay neutral.
Yeah. On the receiving end of somebody being neutral, I mean, it's a completely different experience. What's that like, having somebody being like, oh, okay, can you say more? Could you explain that? It might be super frustrating too. Like, no, I just want to fight. Like I told you, I've had a few people in my life be like, we need to have a fight. And I'm like, what? Go for it. Try to fight me. Come on. I will fight for my kids. I will say that. If you want to see me go into mama bear to one of my kids or my grandchild, I'm not kidding. But the rest of the time, I'm just not interested in that level of communication. I'm just not willing to go there. And I know that, like I said earlier, that could be really frustrating. On the other hand, having somebody who slows it down because they value the relationship. I want to understand what the upset is. I want to understand what this problem is. I want to be able to hear you and understand you. And we can close with this, but I had a conversation with one of my kids, and I could tell she was kind of looking for a fight. And we never went there because I was like, hang on, can you please explain what you mean? Can you say it a different way? Can you tell me where you're coming from? The feeling of I'm gonna let her have it. It just went away. And same thing with my aunt Nancy. She said, I don't want to fight with you, which it just cracked me up. I was like, We've never had a fight. What?" She just had a question for me. And I just calmly answered it. And she said, "Thank you." So it's interesting that it's kind of in the culture that if we are going to have a talk where you disagree with me and I disagree with you, it's going to escalate. That is not necessarily true.
Yeah.
But people have to have their heads on their shoulders and there has to be mutual respect, right? I mean, this is a spicy conversation. We could get into it.
Robin, you're awesome.
But I'm
I
not
love
really that interested in that. So how about if we just do something different, right? Like, so I think when you're the person that's neutral, like you said earlier, Nina, it opens up a lot of possibilities. It just does. If you are able to do this for yourself, it will absolutely shift the conversations you have with people. And it might take a little while because they'll be like, what are you doing? Who are you? You know?
Yeah. There's a lot of power in neutrality. And I feel like I'm going to walk away even from this conversation, contemplating and considering what is neutrality. And I'm excited for others who are in this conversation with us to try it on as well. Continue this dialogue.
Absolutely. Well, it is a dialogue and it doesn't just happen overnight and it takes some self-awareness and definitely takes self-control. And if you blow it, you blow it. You're never going to be perfect. There are going to be times where you get so triggered that remaining neutral is hard. But if you can be neutral enough or at least grounded and stable enough that the damage is not as severe as it would have been. Nobody's perfect and nobody can be neutral all the time. But if you can catch it when it starts and slow it down,
Mhm.
there's that's the first step, just catching it and asking what is happening and not just jumping in the fray. That could be really helpful. So Nina, it was fun talking with you. I hope maybe you have a slightly different perspective on neutrality. Thanks for being here. Listening or watching, glad you were here. Happy to take your questions too. You can always find us at Thanks, Nina.